This is going to be the first lecture on introduction to Python. And today it might sound a little bit theoretical, although we are going to start with programming, but from tomorrow's lecture only we'll see some of the real code. The reason why I start with some of the theory part is, because in my previous experiences with some of the interviews, there were some questions which was asked to me, which can be only answered if you know a little bit theory about this programming language, some basic uh, concepts, how this programming in with Python came into existence, right? So we'll touch today some of the conceptual understanding about Python, and from tomorrow's lecture we'll start actually coding in Python. So first of all, what is a programming language? So I'll not invest too much time on this definition and theory part, but still just wanted to highlight all the important features of Python. A programming language is a computer language that is used by programmer to communicate with computer, right? So the way human communicates with each other with their native language, similarly, if you want to communicate with any machine, computer, we need to communicate in the language they understand, right? And at a root level, although it is 0 and 1, but at high level, there are programming language people have devised to give instructions to computer. To just give an example, some of them are like C, C++, Java, C Sharp, Python, right? Now, whenever we talk about the programming language, there are two broad classifications of programming language. One is called low-level language, and another is called high-level language. The basic difference between low-level and high-level programming language is, low-level language are those language which can be interpreted by machine, which is more closer to machine language, right? So if I give you a task of coding 2 plus 2, right, and I'll ask you only to use zeros and ones, because zeros are and ones are the only thing computer understands, right? So the program that you'll write and that under that constraint would be low level language, because you are coding in a language which computer directly understands, or at least you will write a programming language which is closer to 0 and 1, right? Now if you are writing a programming language in zeros and ones, right, in that case you won't be needing any system to convert your programming language into machine language, because you're directly writing your code in machine language, right? So in that case you won't be using compiler or interpreter. I hope you understand what is compiler and interpreter. uh, if not, then I'll just give you a one liner definition. A compiler or interpreter is a system which is used to convert your programming code from high level to low level, or I should say it is used to convert your code into a form which machine can understand, right? Now the problem with this low level programming languages, it is very hard to understand, right? Because obviously if I'll give you a task to do and I'll give you that you have to do it only in zeros and ones, probably it will take hours, days, even weeks to do a very simple task, right? Because you have to do it in form of zeros and ones. That is a reason normally we do not code using low level language, right? If you have done some course on electronics engineering, or if you have any background of electronics engineering, then probably you must have done some coding which is more closer to low level language by using uh, certain software which is used to program microchip microprocessor, right? If you have not done, then still it is fine. Just for the sake of understanding, understand that low level programming language is a language which uses machine level language, or at least closer to machine level language, for giving instruction to computer to execute certain task. Fine. Now the advantage with this low level language is, this language is very very fast. Just imagine if you can communicate with someone in their native language, the conversation will be very smooth, right? And it will be very quick, right? If you are a person who have been born and brought up at Telangana, Hyderabad, it would be very easier for you to communicate with me in Telugu, and it will be able to understand my thing very quickly also, right? So same thing happens with computer also. If I have to communicate with computer, if I can do using low level language in form of zeros and ones, computer will understand it very quickly. So the advantage of low level language, it is very, very fast, because there is no intermediate system which has to transfer or translate your input to the form which computer will understand. Is it clear, guys? What is low level language?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Now that is a reason the people have come up with high level language. What is a high level language? It is a language which is more closer to a form which human understand, right? It is more like a coding in C++, Python, right? Which human can easily understand. Now just imagine the same example. You are from Telangana, you have born and brought up Telangana, whereas I, who is coming from some other region, let's say Chhattisgarh, and I know only Chhattisgarhi to communicate with, whereas you know only Telugu to understand. What it would require? It required some intermediate person, right? Which would translate my input, which would be in Chhattisgarhi, into Telugu so that you'll understand, right? And that person is doing the job of compiler or interpreter. He is translating my input into the language which you understand, and the moment you understand that language, you will take an action, right? So this is a high level language. I'm giving my input to a language which I understand, which is easier for me, right? And we are needing a system in between, which is called compiler or interpreter, to translate that input in a form which you understand, right? For example, Python, Java, C, C++, all these are the example of high level language, correct? So the benefit with high level languages, it is easier to write code or program in it. But a drawback of high level language is it is little bit slow compared to low level language. Why is it slow? Because there is a role of compiler or interpreter in between, which has to translate my input in a form which you would understand, and in doing so it takes some amount of time. Are you following me?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes. So these are the two high level classification of programming language: low level programming language and high level programming language. All right. Now, what kind of question you can expect in interview from this, right? If interviewer give you a case scenario where it requires your program to respond very, very quickly. For example, you are trying to build a gaming software, right? A gaming software, and he might ask you, if I have to build this piece which has to respond very, very quickly, which kind of programming language would you use, right? Obviously your answer would be a language which is more toward low level language, which computer natively understand, right? What would happen if you code that with Python or any other programming language which is although very much interpretable for human but not so interpretable by computer? It has to employ another system which is called compiler or interpreter to convert your command, your input, in a form which he understands, and while doing so there will be some time lag which your user might not uh, like, right? If suppose you have to play a game with very, very high FPS, and if there's, just imagine if there is a lag in each of your frame, obviously as a user you will not appreciate it, right? So what would be your answer? Your answer would be that piece of code you would probably do using C or C++, because those are more closer to machine level language. Although it's again an example of high level language, but still compared to Python, those are a little bit more faster. Fine, guys. Okay. Now we understood that classification of programming language. Now let's talk about the paradigm of programming language. So broadly, a programming language has three kind of paradigm. One is your procedural programming language. Other is your object-oriented programming language. Sorry for the bad handwriting. And third is, which is very much trending right now, is natural language programming language. Natural language, that I should say. Okay. Now let's see what are the difference between these programming language, procedural, object-oriented, and natural language. We'll start with procedural. Right. So if I have to give instruction to computer, right, using procedural programming language, right, how would I do? I would write a line of code here, then I will write another line of code here, another line of code here, and so on. You know, so what exactly I'm trying to do? I am giving a sequence of instruction which I'm expecting computer to execute line by line. Right? I'm giving set of instructions. So this is nothing called procedural form of programming language. Sorry, procedural programming paradigm. Or you can say it is a structured programming paradigm, because you see the input or instruction which you are giving to computer, it is line by line. You're following a sequence, right? So one way when you should apply procedural programming paradigm is when your input to computer is very simple, right? When it is very much simple, it is not very much computation intensive. In that case, you can give your procedural programming paradigm. But often in most of the scenario, if you have to come up with a big programming applications, people don't prefer this procedural programming paradigm. Rather, they prefer object-oriented programming paradigm. Okay, so what is exactly object-oriented programming paradigm, which is also called OOP, object-oriented programming language? Right here, what happens? Instead of giving your input sequentially line by line, you can modularize your program. What exactly I mean by saying modularizations? Let's say you are trying to build some of your application, let's say you are trying to build a calculator. Okay, so what you would do, you would write a function or a module, I would say, for doing addition. Here you would can write another module for doing subtraction, another module for doing multiplication. Right, so these are the modules you have created. Now you can use this module when and wherever required in your program. If suppose a user gives an instruction like 2 plus 2. Sorry. If a user is giving me, let's say it is giving me 2 plus 2. So you know that this is an addition operation. You will simply invoke this module in your system because you have already written a module for doing addition. Same goes on for other operations also. So what you are doing is, here you are modularizing your entire program. And this is one of the very cool feature of object-oriented programming. Fine. The other is natural language. So now this is a very recent kind of programming paradigm which people are still trying to figure out. And I'm sure you must be really amazed by its application. For example, if you are using an Alexa, right? So how does Alexa work? It is kind of a voice assistance, right? You communicate with Alexa, Google Homes, or Cortana, Siri by giving an input through your text. I mean, not text, verbal input, right? You are communicating with these devices in your native language, in the language which you understand, which is your natural language. And whatever you are giving input or instructions to these devices, they are able to respond to your natural language. For example, if I have to ask a question to Alexa, who is the president of US, right? Alexa would give me an answer in a form which I understand. Alexa would say that the president of US is Joe Biden, right? So this is a very recent kind of programming paradigm which is getting this shape. Some of the other example of natural language programming paradigm is chatbot, right? Nowadays, in almost any website, if you are trying to do some operations, you'll immediately see a pop-up window saying that, hey, I'm your virtual assistant. And if you have any FAQ, you can directly type your questions to that chatbot. And if chatbot is having answer, it will immediately get back to you, right? So these are the three broad programming paradigm of any programming language. Our focus in this entire course would be to focus on object-oriented programming paradigm. And if you know object-oriented programming paradigm, probably you can figure out procedural-oriented programming language and natural language by your own. So for any question, guys?
Shikha,
Yes.
like you have given example of object-oriented programming. C is not object-oriented programming, right?
Yes, I understand. Yeah, I'll make this correction here. C is not a object-oriented programming language. C++ is, C# is, Java is, Python is, but C is not. Correct. Any other question? Can you call C a pseudo object-oriented programming language?
Yes,
How?
because I use files, no?
Yes, file handling is there. Also, in C, there is no absolute concept of class, but you have a concept of called structure, right? Which in a way can be correlated with class. I'm not saying that C has class implementation and all, but you can do some explicit um, inheritance of object-oriented concept in C also. But it doesn't mean that we can go ahead and say that C is a object-oriented programming language. You're absolutely right. I'll make a correction here. Let me do it right now. Okay. Any question, guys, till here? Fine. Now let's get ourselves familiar with Python. We'll start with how exactly Python came into existence, and it's really interesting to learn this because Python was a hobby project by just one single person, Guido van Rossum, and it was developed entirely by him. Later, it grew by the community support, but Guido van Rossum was the person who laid the foundation of this beautiful programming language in 1991. And it's been like now 30 years, Python is dominating the market. So you can understand how much potential this language has. And expert has forecast like it will remain the top programming language till 2032, right? So there's a good amount of time where you can rule the market if you have knowledge of Python. Okay. Now, when I started learning Python, there was a very curiosity in my mind that why Python? I mean, why does it named Python, right? And I'm sure you must be also having the same question. And later, when I did some search, I got to know that uh, the person who actually invented Python, Guido van Rossum, he was a very big fan of popular BBC comedy show. The name was Monty Python Flying Circus, and from this title of the show, he picked the name Python for his programming language. This is crazy, but yeah, this is true. So from there, the word Python came into existence as a programming language. Right? As of now, Python is one of the most widely used in user-friendly programming language. Right? When I say user-friendly, I simply means that this is the only programming language which is very much intuitive, and it is very much easy to comprehend from reader perspective also. But obviously, this comes with a cost. We can never compare Python with C in terms of speed. Obviously, C is much faster compared to Python, and this is one of the limitations with Python, that it cannot compete with C or C++ when it is about speed of executing program, right? We will see why exactly there's a difference in speed, what C or C++ has to offer, because of which the speed is very high compared to Python. But yeah, this is the trade-off we have to make. If we have to make our program intuitive for the user, easy to comprehend, some trade-off we have to make. So this is our trade-off part, guys. The speed of Python for executing a program is relatively slow compared to C or C++. Okay. One of the success reason for Python is it is open source. Literally anybody who has good amount of knowledge in Python, he can go ahead and put his own package, and if that package was accepted, it can be included in Python distribution uh, libraries, right? Nowadays, not nowadays, I think it's been a couple of years or more than that, various operating system like Mac, right, they have started giving Python uh, as a like, what should I say, uh, whenever you'll purchase any MacBook, no, you will have Python pre-installed in it, right? So it's like a go-to offering uh, by many of the laptop or computer manufacturer. It is a general purpose programming language, right? So with general purpose programming language, I mean that it's not specific for any specific kind of task. If you want to do web development, you have Python. If you want to do data science, you have Python. If you want to do some statistical analysis, you have Python. So any kind of uh, task you want to do, there's a very high chance that Python would have some library support for that, and you would be able to do that very easily using Python, right? It is dynamic, high level. Obviously, we understood what is high level, and Python is a high level language. It is interpreted programming language, right? So this is an important point. We'll discuss what is interpreted programming language a bit later, but just wanted to give you a heads up. There are two kinds of programming language. I mean, this is a further subdivision of high level programming language. A programming language can be compiler based programming language, or it can be interpreted programming language. Okay, we'll see just the difference between what is compiler based programming language and what is interpreted language. C is C++ is compiler based programming language, whereas Python is interpreted based programming language. Okay. It supports full object oriented concept. It is dynamic type. Again, we'll see what is dynamic type, and it is having a functionality for automatic garbage collection. If you are from C background, you must be familiar that how much it is pain and difficult to do memory management in C, right? You must have done concept like malloc, calloc, right? In Python, there's nothing like that. The memory management, garbage collection, everything is taken care by system itself at the back end, and you need not to worry about that. Okay. One of the reason why Python has got traction in the recent year is because of the development in AI, machine learning, big data, graphical user interface system, robotics, and Python has a very good amount of library support for all these different technologies, which is getting evolved day by day, right? Now, although I have already given you enough reason why to read Python, why to study Python, but still let us take a formal look. What are the advantages we have when we are learning a Python, right? Compared to any other programming language, it is very easy to learn, to understand. The syntax is very much intuitive. We have discussed this earlier also, but just wanted to repeat it again, right? Now, this is interpreted language, as I mentioned earlier. Now, what I mean by interpreted language, whenever you write any code with Python, all right, and whenever you execute that Python source code, right, then a bytecode is generated, right? A bytecode is nothing but, you can say it is a kind of a pseudo machine code. It's neither a high level programming code, neither it's a low level programming code. It is an somewhat intermediate between high level and low level, right? And this byte,
Ashutosh,
yes,
as we say, like Java is platform independent, isn't it?
yes, Java is
Platform, yeah, platform independent. Then is Python not independent? That you have mentioned, it is executed by Python virtual machine. So is it not Python like platform independent,
it is
like
also
Java?
it is also Python platform independent. See, Java
But
is
in one platform you can write the like code and you can execute in another platform. Does
yes,
it also provide the same?
yep, exactly. See, Java executable file is run by what? Java virtual machine, JVM.
Yeah.
Similarly, Python machine code is implemented by Python virtual machine, which is readily a part of your Python installation. So here the concept is also same. You can write Python code in any programming language. You can run that code, source code, in any other programming, in any other operating system. Sorry, I think I messed up here. You can write
Yeah.
your Python code in any operating system. Then you
Can you
can,
correct it so that?
yep, I'm repeating it again. You can write your Python code in any operating system. Once your code is ready, your source code is ready, you can take that source code to any other any other operating system. Let's say I've written my Python code in Windows, then I can take that source code into Mac OS also and execute that source code, right? So see, as long as Python bytecode and virtual machine have same version, Python bytecode can be executed in any platform. See, what happens is, I'll give you a bit detail. Okay, so let's say that you have written a Python code, source code. This is your source code. Okay, so first of all, this source code has to be converted into bytecode. Okay, now this bytecode is further converted into machine code. And who convert this bytecode into machine code? It is interpreter. Fine. Now, as long as you have in your system Python, you have a Python virtual machine which can execute that bytecode, you are good to run any source code which is written in Python, right? And operating system like Linux and Mac, they comes with pre-installed these Python environment which has this virtual machine, right? So if I write something in Windows and I'll give that source code to you to run in Mac OS, you would be able to do it without any hassle. Is it clear?
Okay.
Let me know if you have any doubt. I can rephrase it.
No problem. I got it.
All right. Yep. So yeah, another benefit with Python is it is first of all, it has all the features of object-oriented programming language. It support class, it support polymorphism, it support inheritance, it support file handling, it support function overloading, overriding. Whatever concept you can think with respect to OOP concept, it is there in Python also.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask, like if we go ahead as the language programming languages are progressing,
Mhm,
in C++ we had this right inheritance concept,
mhm,
and then when it comes to Java we have interfaces,
mhm.
and then what is that special feature in Python which like differentiates from the earlier languages?
Yeah, the only special, see, there is nothing in Python, if we'll say compared to C++ or Java, there's nothing as such special about Python. It's just that whatever thing you have in Java or C++, it's already there in Python. The library support of Python is the ESP of it, right? If I say you that you have to build a website in Java, right? You have to do some good amount of coding. You have to make thousands of line of code to make a website and publish it using Java, right? But if I do the same thing using Python, it would be very, very efficient compared to number of lines, right? So I think I mentioned this earlier also. The only ESP about Python is its library support. Anything that you want to do, anything you want
Yeah,
to
like
do,
PyChart and bar graph,
ye-
as you said mentioned last time. So
yes,
that is not there in Java, right? So
yes,
far.
yes, yes,
So those are available in Python library.
yes.
To say.
You have already seen that. If you have to do data visualization, how easy it is to do with Python. Just need to write one line of code,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Now dynamic memory allocation. So this is that topic which we'll discuss a bit more in later lectures. But right now you can just understand that Python uses dynamic memory allocation, which is managed by heap data structure. Okay, heap is a kind of data structure. If you are familiar with data structure like stack, stack is the one, queue is the another. Like that, heap is another data structure which takes care of your uh, dynamic memory allocations in Python. I already spoke about the garbage collection. You do not have to worry about garbage collection in Python. There's already system running at the backend for doing this, right? Last and not the least, wide range of framework and library. This is the most important thing, which is unmatched, which is which you cannot compare with any other programming language, right? And this is the reason why Python is dominating the industry. It has wide range of framework and library. Okay, we'll talk about what is the difference between library and framework probably in the next lecture. I'll just give you a heads up about what is a framework. See, if you have to build a website, right, you have to take care of a lot of things, right? You have to think about how the data would move from one system to another system, how the data would be stored in different data structure. There are a lot of things that you have to consider, right? Python has already a framework for that. One popular framework of Python for web development is called Django. With the help of that, you can build a website in a minutes or maybe in hours, and publish it also if you're having a valid domain name, right? So those framework have already taken care of those aspects. They already have some rough skeleton which could be used for building website on top of it. I think we have less than 1 minute, so I'll not further elaborate this, but we'll see this thing in tomorrow's lecture. Yep. If you have any question, doubt from today's class, I'll again spin a 15-minute bridge, and in that bridge you can ask your all doubts. Okay, once this link get expired. Please ping in the